Hi everyone, I'm Yoim Hong, studying as a research fellow at NARIC and a master's student majoring in international relations at Seoul National University. My poster is composed of an introduction, a summary of literature review, a research design, pilot study results, and further progress. So let me start. Okay, so first of all, my main research question was how reassuring is the means of nuclear extended deterrence to the non-nuclear ally? In other words, how do we know the security policies from the US are effective or not in the perspective of South Korea? Many researchers have tried to answer this question, but the thing that can be noticed is that how security policies contribute to the reassurance of an allied state is still under dispute among scholars. So, based on this sense of the problem, the flow of literature that I wanted to explore is divided into three categories. They look at how security of nuclear powers affects their allies, especially their willingness to develop their own nuclear weapons. The first wave in the literature is scholars who see nuclear guarantees in nuclear power as having various potential links to the country's pursuit of nuclear weapons. In this wave, many scholars argue that the provision of security guarantees by nuclear powers would reduce security anxiety in allies and their security commitments and reduce their motivation to proliferate. The second wave is the recognition of the variable security guarantees as a control variable to measure the independent effect of other potential causal factors on nuclear development. However, the topics discussed in the previous two waves were limited to different interpretations and results among scholars. Accordingly, the third wave proceeded by introducing a new methodology, especially a survey experiment, to overcome the previous two limitations. As a result, my hypotheses are set in three ways, as in the previous presentation. If there is any change from the last time, the control situation was modified a little bit to reflect the fact that it could be unrealistic for the control group to assume that control would not be applied properly to the respondents. The other three measures would provide scenarios for various military policies within the alliance, which is troop deployment, redeployment of US tactical nuclear weapons, and joint military exercise. What I want to pay attention to is how South Koreans perceive various extended nuclear policies to promote alliance reliability and how this level of awareness affects South Korea's unwillingness to develop their own nuclear weapons. This is, after all, in looking at how South Koreans accept the US commitments and how this level of acceptance relate to their willingness to develop their indigenous nuclear weapons. Next is the result of my pilot study. So you can see the correlation between credibility in U.S. security policies and domestic nuclear proliferation support. The variables are defense paths, troop deployment, joint military exercise, and U.S. tactical nuclear weapons. So prior to the full-fledged survey plan, this study was conducted as a preliminary study for exploration and design development, and it analyzed samples of about 60 people. Of course, the number of samples is too small, and changes in various controls and treatments are further needed in the questionnaire. But what's interesting is that credibility in U.S. security policy and domestic nuclear proliferation support do not correlate positively. Nevertheless, considering that significant differences between treatment variables are not revealed, and the distribution of points on the remaining three scatter plots is quite wide, I think it would take a lot of thought to have statistical significance between two variables. Considering the following points, I think we can develop the research design in the future by considering the following complementary points. First of all, the results of the preliminary study emphasizes that the literature on the moral hazard that occurs to the allies within the context of the U.S. ROK alliance needs to be reviewed again. Therefore, I think that a question asking for an emotional or intuitive idea of a military alliance or the United States could be added to capture the dynamics derived from these pledges and signal gains. In addition, I think comparative case studies can be conducted focusing on similarities and differences between like effectiveness of the U.S. extended deterrence policy in the two regions, considering that U.S. extended nuclear deterrence policy is applied not only just to East Asia, but also to European NATO countries. So I think also it helps to answer the following questions, such as how much or which policy information do states have toward each other? And second, how do states interpret the information? And third, which decision is made based on this interpretation? So my further progress will be focused on examining these mechanisms. This is all for my presentation. Thank you for listening.